you're talking about the endocannabinoid system at the conference
I did.
in our body. What is that all about, and what's its role?
So the endocannabinoid system is a very ancient conserved system within the body. It's a complex biological system. And when I mean it's conserved, it means that it's in many, many other creatures that are considered earlier on in the development of life forms on Earth. In fact, they've actually found the endocannabinoid system in some plants that have flowers. So it's been around since they think about 600 million years ago. So it's basically entrenched and intrinsic to the way our body functions. The fascinating thing is that I consider this the perfect example of reverse engineering. They actually named a system in our body after a plant because they discovered a few thousand years ago. Ancient people, don't underestimate their incredible intelligence. So ancient peoples were very, very smart. And they figured out so much about plants and how they can interact with the human body to help us. We've lost a lot of that, and we're hopefully going to get that back. And one of the plants that was really foundational to the old-fashioned therapies that were used by very early humans, like a few thousand years ago, were the cannabis family. And it was only in the 1980s that it was discovered that these plants actually work on our own body system receptors. And they didn't really know what that was, but they realized that there was a connection there. They didn't know really before that, like what was happening. And then it wasn't until 1992 that the first endogenous endocannabinoid, which was named anandamide, after the Sanskrit word for bliss. And they discovered that we have our own cannabinoid receptors, and so they named it endo, for within us, cannabinoid system, after cannabis. So it's an amazing thing that we discovered that this system, this endocannabinoid system, is based upon lipids. So they're actually lipid signaling agents made out of fatty acids. And it's like a whole new world of understanding. So this system actually is all about reproduction and survival. So I always bring in the female aspect and how it all links together with our hormones. And we now know that the endocannabinoid system, which is receptors spread throughout the entire body. We've discovered, and if you look back on the research of the endocannabinoid system, you see the evolution of our understanding, which is still ongoing, about how this system is basically over the entire body and all the different organs, and how it's linked. And that's where I put the linkage between the endocannabinoid system and female hormones and reproduction, reproductive success, and basically survival of the species.
So there's receptors then in our body that recognize cannabinoids and can allow them to attach, and explain what exactly is happening and from there on out.
Yeah, so exactly as you began, the earliest receptors that were found, and so if you think about what is a receptor, it's like the recipient of a signal. And that signal, in this case, are the endocannabinoids, and we've discovered, and we're discovering more and more about that. So the first receptors that were involved with the endocannabinoid system that were discovered were what we named CB1 and CB2. The first signs of CB1 were discovered in rat brains, and they thought initially that CB1 was exclusively in brains. And then they found, no, that's not true. It's actually everywhere. And then they discovered CB2. And they discovered CB2 was primarily on immune cells. And they thought initially, oh, it's only on immune cells. And then they discovered, no, it's actually everywhere. Because like a hormone, there's receptors for most hormones everywhere. And so this system, the way I'm looking at the endocannabinoid system, is that it's the workhorse of the body. So if you think of the body as sort of a relay race, and you pass the baton. So hormones, and I focus a lot on estrogen, which is really the master hormone of the female body, the master of metabolic homeostasis, and metabolism is really the creation of energy, its distribution, its storage, which is really the life force. So it's really about life itself, the creation of energy. After all, that's what a living creature can do, right? A rock can't create energy, it can just reflect it. So we are amazing, we create energy. And estrogen is very key to managing the creation distribution of energy in the female body and in the male. I always focus on females because that's my area of expertise, but males have tons of estrogen. But unlike women, during the reproductive years where much of their estrogen is made by the ovaries and then distributed around the body, in males they're made on site within the individual organs, what we call paracrine. So they're not circulating, but there's plenty, and they're made locally in most of the organs of the body. So estrogen is really the master of male metabolism as well. It's just that it doesn't get the focus because it's not measured in the blood, it's in the organs themselves. So estrogen passes the baton to the endocannabinoid system. So there's this incredible linkage, this feedback system between estrogen and the endocannabinoid system. So much of what estrogen accomplishes, it turns out, is actually through the endocannabinoid system. For example, estradiol is known to be anxiolytic, which means it reduces anxiety. And we didn't really know exactly how that worked, but now it's believed it actually works through the endocannabinoid system. And a lot of people know that the exogenous types of, like, marijuana and hemp, that they're used for anxiety and for emotional issues. And it turns out that the mechanism is actually in play from estradiol by going through the endocannabinoid system to create this anxiolytic, reducing anxiety effect. But when you have very high levels, and that's predominantly through the CB1 receptor, and it turns out that both the anandamide, which was the first endocannabinoid that was discovered, and 2-AG, which was the second, they both work through all the receptors, but the 2-AG is more powerful, but the anandamide seems to have more of a similarity to THC. So we're just learning. It's really all at the beginning stages. But it turns out that because of the feedback systems in terms of maintaining reproductive functions and ovulation and the ability for an embryo to implant, all that is very, very intricately related to the endocannabinoid system that most people don't know. It doesn't get talked about that much, how it works with reproduction. And that is the foundation and prime directive of life, is reproduction. Of course, my background is as a board-certified OBGYN, so I kind of got it right from the get-go. It all is about making babies and survival to raise the babies so that the babies can make their own babies, right? That just is the circle of life. If it may be a cliche from Disney, and we are here by Disney World, but it is what it is. It's really about the circle of life. New life creating new life to create new life and going on downstream. So it turns out that estrogen and the endocannabinoid system have this amazing feedback system where estrogen can increase, and then you get the feedback that in turn the endocannabinoids decrease estrogen. So, and that's where you can get into trouble though. If you use marijuana recreationally, you can actually, for females, it actually lowers males' testosterone and sperm count. So it has a very significant impact on males. I focus on females, but it can definitely increase fertility problems. They've done studies in women who have in vitro fertilization. They have poor quality oocytes. Their eggs are not quality. They have more miscarriages. They do not do well. Women will miscarry regardless if they get pregnant naturally, a much higher rate of miscarriage, infertility, irregular cycles, and if they use it during pregnancy, it can initiate preterm deliveries. So it's definitely, it's out there, it's legal in most states, and people think if things are legal, they're safe. And we know that that's not true. Look how many over-the-counter pharmaceuticals there are. That doesn't mean they're safe. So what I want to do is make sure that women and men understand the potential negative repercussions of using some of these products that are now, especially in young people, are very, very widespread in their use without understanding that they intricately link to our hormone systems and that can lower our hormone production. And that's a big deal. So it's a very big deal. So we need to have warnings and understand this amazing system in the body that up until just like 20 or so years ago, we didn't even know it existed. And I didn't know anything about it in medical school. And in fact, most doctors have been trained before it was even discovered. That's why we have to start really from scratch and educate the medical providers, because how are they going to then educate their patients if they know nothing about this incredible system, which is not just sort of a little bit important, it's foundational to the way the body works.